Hey tribe, welcome back to the mat and welcome to a new moon yin practice. If you would like to learn more about the cycle of the moon and the moon phases, I will link to a blog post in the description below where you can read a bit more about that. The new moon is a time of stillness, a time to find quiet and to really look inward. It's a time for introspection. And it's a time to set intention. So really looking in and asking yourself what it is that your heart truly desires. Like, what are your deepest desires? And then setting intentions that align with those desires. Like I said, check out that blog post. It'll go into some more detail if you would like to learn more. Before we dive right into this yin practice, please make sure you like this video and subscribe to the channel for more free yoga. And if you haven't joined the online tribe yet, please come join us. The link is in the description below. It's a great place to come share your practice, to gain inspiration, and to inspire others on their journey. Alrighty, that is about it on that. I do recommend having 2 blocks handy for this practice. The yin practice is very still. We hold the poses for 3 to 5 minutes per pose. And having props available helps us to stay in those poses a little bit longer. So if you would like to grab a bolster or blanket, like, have all the toys available, anything that you'd like to play with. But 2 blocks for sure will come in handy. If you don't have blocks, you can use some like bigger books. Some sturdy books should work as well. Other than that, all you'll need is your yoga mat. So go ahead, unroll your mat and let's get started. Okay, we're going to begin here in a tall, comfortable seat. So I am sitting in Sukhasana with one ankle stacked in front of the other, but you do not have to sit this way by any means. Any position that allows you to sit with a tall spine that feels comfortable on your hips and your knees, your legs. Go ahead and find that. I am sitting up on a block. Elevating the hips can be kind of nice in these seated poses, so you can feel free to try that. Maybe sit up on a cushion or a bolster if you have one. Whatever comfortable means for you today, go ahead and find that. And once you do, you can allow the hands to rest on the knees or the thighs, anywhere that is comfortable. And invite the eyelids to close. We're going to take about 10 breaths here, bringing the attention inward, finding some stillness. And as you take these slow, deep breaths, begin to inquire deeply. Take a look inside and begin to ask yourself what it is that you desire. What do you wish to manifest in your life? What would you like to see come to fruition? Begin to plant those seeds. These seeds of intention. And plant them deeply in the fertile soil of your mind. And the seeds that we plant at the new moon, we nurture through the lunar phase, allowing them to grow and to bloom towards the end of the lunar phase. So plant your intentions here deeply, and then we'll revisit them, check in with them at the full moon. Take 2 more deep breaths right here. Gently flutter the eyes open. And we'll begin this practice in a child's pose. So coming out of your comfortable seat, moving any props if you were sitting up on any, and you choose if you'd like to bring the knees about as wide as your mat, or if you'd like them to be a bit more narrow, depending on what feels best for you on your hips. Maybe you try both and then settle on one. We'll be in this child's pose for about 3 minutes, and we're going to use a timer today, so the timer will let us know when we'll be coming out. But go ahead and find a comfortable place for your child's pose. And if you struggle to bring your seat down onto your heels, like if you're pretty up high, you can bring a cushion in between seat and feet, or a blanket, so that you can really allow yourself to settle into the pose and really allow the body to relax into it. So once you find the place where you'd like to be, you can allow the torso to melt down, and we'll go ahead and set our timer for 3 minutes for child's pose, bringing the forehead onto the earth. You can allow the arms to be long in front of you, or if you'd like, you can bring the hands back towards the feet and kind of let the shoulders melt down towards the mat as well. Allowing yourself to get really heavy here in this child's pose. Allowing the earth to fully support you. You can imagine that you in this small round shape are your seed of intention. What is your intention for this lunar cycle? What are you planting here at this new moon? We've got another 30 seconds or so here. And bring your intention back to mind. What seeds will you sow in the coming weeks? And slowly begin to come out of your child's pose. lifting up into a tabletop position. And we'll move through some cat-cows here, just bringing a little bit of movement into the spine. So stack the wrists right under the shoulders and the knees right underneath the hips. As you inhale, drop the belly, lift the gaze and the tailbone. And as you exhale, round the spine, press the earth away, bringing the chin towards the chest. Inhale, arch the back, lifting the gaze. And exhale, round. One more, inhale. Lift and arch. And exhale, round. And we're going to come into it's called Dragonfly in the Yin practice. You might know it as a seated, wide-legged forward fold. So coming to a seat on your mat, opening the legs wide, and they don't have to be super wide. You're not looking for your deepest expression of the pose, at least not right now. And your blocks might come in handy here. So you can grab those. And again, we'll be here 3 minutes. So stay a little bit shallower in the pose to start. And then as you breathe into it, you can maybe gradually come a little bit deeper. We're going to let the feet relax. So often with our wide-legged forward fold, we've got really active legs with the toes pointing up to the sky. In this, we're going to let it chill. So I'll go ahead and set our timer as you go ahead and find your way into your wide-legged forward fold or your dragonfly, bringing blocks underneath you if you'd like. So I'm starting with my blocks on medium height for now. You might want to start with blocks on highest height, depending on how you are feeling. You can allow the eyes to close if you would like, if that feels comfortable. I'm trying to keep awareness with the breath, with your intention. And if an intention hasn't come to you yet, that's okay. The beauty of a yin practice is that it gives us space. There is time and space as we hold the poses to continue to inquire inside. To continue to ask yourself what it is that you truly desire, allowing your heart to speak to you. And staying with some long, deep breaths. You have about a minute left in this pose, so you can decide if you would like to move a little bit deeper into it. Allowing the breath to sort of take you there. Slowly begin to lift on up out of this pose, taking it nice and slow. And from here, we'll move into a sleeping swan. In yin, you might know this as pigeon pose. So go ahead and bend the right knee, bringing the right shin parallel-ish to the top of your mat. And we're going to turn to face the top of the mat. So begin to square your hips. And feel free to bring the right foot in close to the left hip if you would like. Look behind you. Make sure that the left leg is extending straight back behind you. And if you are collapsing onto the right hip, bring the weight onto the left hand as you square yourself. So you want the hips facing straight forward. And if that lifts your right hip way up off the mat, bring a block underneath that hip so you can prop yourself up and allow yourself to be fully supported here in this pigeon pose. And if this feels like too much for you, feel free to bend the left knee and take a variation here where you have both legs bent, and then we'll come to rest over the right leg. You can take that option as well. If none of this works for you, feel free to come onto the back. I'll show you what that looks like. You will come onto the back, make a figure 4 in the legs, and then you'll hug the left leg in towards the chest. So that's another option for this pose. So find the place that works for you, and we're gonna melt on into it. So we'll be here again 3 minutes per side. So I invite you to stay lifted for a little bit. Allow yourself to slowly come into the pose. So not looking for your deepest expression right from the get-go. Go ahead and set that timer. 3 minutes here. And again, you can allow the eyes to close if that feels comfortable. And breathe into the sensations in the outer right hip. We tend to carry a lot of baggage and emotion in the hips. So notice what, if anything, comes up for you here in this pose. It doesn't mean that anything has to come up. If nothing comes up and like you're just chilling, then that's cool too. The new moon is also a really nice time to set new projects for yourself. So if setting something like an intention feels a bit vague for you and you're not quite there, you just don't really have an intention in mind, you can also set a new project for yourself. So maybe a new endeavor, something to develop in these next few weeks, over the next month as we make our way through this lunar cycle. This is a time for new beginnings. About 1 more minute here. Feel free to take it a little bit deeper if you'd like, if the body is asking for that. Slowly begin to lift yourself up out of this pose, taking it nice and slow. We've been here for a little while, so come out of it nice and slowly, and you can shift the weight over onto the right hip and bring the left leg around in front. And we're going to switch sides, so bringing the left shin down in front of you, extending the right leg long behind you. If you are taking this on your back, feel free to just switch the legs, do your thing. If you'd prefer to bring this right leg bent, do that. Find the pose on this side. If you are here, make sure that the right leg is extending straight out from the right hip socket. And totally okay, again, for the left foot to be really close to the right hip here. We're not going for a lot of depth here at the beginning. So we'll go ahead and set our timer for 3 minutes here on the left side. You can observe any differences in sensation between right and left side. This is a good pose for that. Right and left side tend to feel quite different here in this pose. Allow yourself to breathe into any sensations, feelings, or emotions that might arise here in this pose. Knowing that any sensations, feelings, emotions are totally okay. We have about 1 more minute here on this side, so if you'd like to move maybe a little bit deeper, feel free. Slowly begin to lift, coming out of this pose, nice and slow. Bring all the weight over onto your left hip, bringing the right leg around in front, and go ahead and bring both feet flat on the mat, bringing the hands back behind you, the weight resting back on the hands, and we'll just windshield wiper the legs to either side a few times. Spent quite a bit of time there opening hips, so bring a little bit of movement into those hips. And from here, we're going to continue with hip opening. So we're going to come into a dragon pose. You might know this as lizard pose. So you can start to bring the right foot up outside the right hand, and then take the left leg all the way back, bringing the left knee onto the earth. So coming into a lizard pose. And again, this is a nice place to bring some blocks down. If this feels really intense, even here, you can bring the hands up onto blocks and rest here. So you want to be able to relax into this pose, to surrender into it. So if you find that you're holding or you're straining and there's tension, prop yourself in a way that's going to allow you to release a bit. We'll be here again 3 minutes on each side, so really make it comfortable. As comfortable as you can. This pose can be pretty uncomfortable for a lot of people. So notice where you are with it. Go ahead and set that timer, 3 minutes right here on the right side. Allowing yourself to surrender into the pose, melt into it. You can stay on hands, or you can bring the forearms onto blocks. I would not recommend bringing the forearms all the way onto the ground, at least not yet, unless you're already like really warm and really open. But we are not warm. We haven't really moved the body to warm up. So notice where your edges lie and stay sort of at your edge. If you feel like you need to adjust, feel free to do so. But do try to find stillness in each of these poses. I find that can be a lot harder to do than the more fiery, fluid, movement-based practices. At least for me, this right here presents a much bigger challenge for me, which is probably why I'm talking so much. Slowly start to elevate the torso, shift the hips back until you can bring the right knee underneath the right hip. And moving your blocks out to the side, palms flat, Take a few hip circles here. Moving in one direction. And then in the other. And we'll come into the other side. So from here, bringing the left foot up outside the left hand. And giving yourself a moment to find the pose on this side. So maybe you bring the right knee back a little bit more, or maybe you bring it in a little bit closer if it feels like you're a little bit too deep to start here. And feel free to bring your blocks underneath your hands or your forearms. Maybe you start on hands and then make your way down. Go ahead and set our timer, 3 minutes. Do notice if the front knee, so the left knee, if it starts to kind of buckle out towards the left. It's totally okay if it does. Just make sure the toes go with it so that they are staying in one line. You always want to keep the toes lined up with the knee to keep the knee safe. So just notice if that is happening for you and make sure you are lined up. Got about 1 more minute here. Notice if the mind has started to wander. Notice where it's going. And then maybe bring it gently back to your intention. What are you going to bring into fruition in these next few weeks? Gently begin to lift. Bring the hips back towards the right foot, nice and slow. And then bring the right knee underneath, or the left knee underneath the left hip. You can move your blocks, finding your tabletop position. And again, take a few circles of the hips. Coming up back around in one direction and then switching into the other direction. And we'll come into one more hip opening pose, Malasana squat. So from here, bring the right foot outside the right hand, and then you'll tuck the back toes, lift the back knee, and bring left foot outside the left hand. Allowing the hips to sit down way down low. Now, if you notice that your heels are super lifted here, bring a rolled up blanket or maybe a cushion underneath the heels so that you can rest the heels down so that they're not kind of like hanging in space. And I am going to recommend bringing a block underneath your seat. So sitting up on a block. We're going to be here again 3 minutes. So make yourself comfortable here. So sitting on a block is a nice way to kind of take some of the tension out of this pose while opening the hips. The palms are going to come to touch at heart center, and we'll press the elbows towards the inside of the legs, the insides of the knees. And you want to feel for the crown of the head reaching up towards the sky as the tailbone kind of gently reaches towards the earth. So finding this really long spine. We've got 3 minutes here. Got about 30 seconds left here in this Malasana. Slowly begin to release. You can bring the hands down and bring your seat down onto the mat. Go ahead and bring the feet flat, the soles of the feet flat onto the mat, hands behind you. And again, we'll windshield wiper the legs side to side as we let that go. And from here, we'll come into what's known in yin as a caterpillar pose. You might know it as a seated forward fold. So make sure you're sitting up on sit bones and not rolling back on tailbone. So I like to sort of lean forward, lift one hip up, pull my seat back, and then bring the hip down again, and then do the same thing on the other side. If you do that and you find you're still kind of rolling back on your tailbone, bring a blanket or maybe a cushion underneath your seat so that you can elevate. And we're going to allow the legs to relax for this forward fold. If you do have a bolster or a cushion, you might want to use that for this pose. Otherwise, maybe you can use your blocks, bringing them onto your lap as we begin to fold forward. So look for length in the spine. So kind of lead with the chest as you come down. And then when you've gone as far as you can go with a long spine, allow yourself to kind of fold forward and melt into the pose. You can kind of angle your blocks so that they are supporting your head. Maybe one is on medium height, one's low height, maybe they're on higher height. Finding what will support you here. And we'll be here again 3 minutes. Sending the breath into the back body. Really taking this pose to really take the attention inward. Forward folds are really great for inquiring deeply within. Physically, we are kind of looking inward, so take this opportunity, bring the attention inside. Notice what's there. Notice if you start to grip or hold anywhere. I find I start tensing muscles after a little bit of time in these poses. So notice if that starts to happen for you, and gently allow that holding to release. Very gently and slowly begin to lift yourself up out of this pose, lifting the torso. Taking a moment to sit up really nice and tall. And from here, we'll come into a supported fish type pose. You're going to utilize your 2 blocks And the first block is going to come just underneath the shoulder blades. So for the ladies, it's like kind of where your bra strap is. You're going to come to lie on the block with it in that spot. So you might need to kind of wiggle about and see where that is. And your second block will come underneath your head. You'll come to lie back. So this is a really nice, gentle heart opener. I have both of the blocks on the same height, so you can play with that. If this feels like too much, you can always bring the block underneath the shoulder blades down onto its lowest height, or you can elevate the block under your head so it's a little bit higher. Actually, I think I'm going to do that. That feels a little more relaxing right now. So you can elevate the block underneath your head so that it's at a higher height than the block underneath the back. And that will make this a bit more gentle for you. The legs can be however you'd like them to be. So if you'd like, you can bring soles of the feet together and kind of let the knees splay out. If you like this idea, but this feels like too much, you can bring, if you have some cushions or pillows or bolsters, you can bring them under the thighs to help prop you up. Otherwise, you can extend the legs straight out in front of you, and the arms will rest by the sides of your body, and that's it. And you just relax here into this. Setting our timer for 3 minutes. So finding the pose the way that it works for you and relaxing into it. Heart openers like this can be vulnerable poses. So notice what, if anything, comes up for you here. Notice where the mind is gone. Bring back to mind the seeds that you are planting, the intentions you are setting, and the projects that you will be planning. And the new moon is the start of a new lunar cycle, so it's a fresh start for the moon. And it can be a fresh start for us as well. It's a really beautiful, powerful tool to have every month. Always a fresh start. Go ahead and bring soles of the feet flat onto the ground. And you can either press onto the elbows to lift up and move the blocks, or you can kind of roll onto one side, bringing the weight onto one forearm, and move the blocks out from underneath you. And we're going to come to lie back all the way onto the back. Take a few breaths here, maybe moving the knees side to side as you let the spine sort of neutralize and flatten here on the mat. And we'll come into just one more pose before Savasana, a happy baby. And we won't stay in this one for a whole 3 minutes. We'll just spend a few breaths. So go ahead and lift feet up towards the sky, taking hold of the inside or outside edges of the feet, pulling the legs down towards the earth, bringing the thighs next to the torso, maybe finding a gentle rocking side to side. And feeling the entire length of the back press down into the earth. And then go ahead and release the feet, hugging the legs in towards the chest. Give them a nice squeeze. And then we'll go ahead and release for Savasana. So extending the legs long, bringing feet about as wide as your mat. If you have a bolster or a rolled up blanket, you can place that under your knees. You can actually use your blocks as well. If you've got your blocks handy, you can bring them underneath your knees to elevate them. Feels kind of nice for your Savasana. If you've got a small towel or an eye mask for the eyes, that's pretty nice. If you'd like to cover up, if you get cold, make yourself comfortable, whatever comfortable means for you. Allowing the chin to tuck towards the chest gently so that the back of the neck is really nice and long. Go ahead and take a big breath in through the nose and fill up the belly. Open the mouth and let it go. And we'll take 2 more like that. Big breath in, fill up the belly. Open the mouth and release. 1 more big breath in. And let it go. Allow the breath to flow on its own natural rhythm in and out of the body. Allow the entire weight of your body to sink into the earth beneath you. Like you are the seed of your intentions, sinking deeply into the earth, being planted, preparing to be nurtured and cultivated and brought forth into fruition. I will leave you here in this Savasana today, planting your seeds, setting your intentions, and preparing yourself for the weeks ahead. Feel free to stay here for as long as your time allows. Thank you so much for joining me here on the mat today for this new moon practice. Have a beautiful, beautiful rest of your day. Namaste.